Today I am going to be doing the F.A.S.T program with Virginia Department of Emergency Management Search and Rescue Program. I'm trying to remember what it actually represents, but it's basically sign cutting, awareness, and tracking. Right now, I'm obviously not going to the training because I would not be wearing this white t-shirt and shorts, which you probably can't see. Instead, I'll be in full uniform, which I will be later. But I'm getting a couple last-minute supplies right before I head out. Now, second question is, where's the Jeep? Yeah, that's another video. But in short, I gotta do some repairs on it. So, more on that later.
I just completed the first section, or the first evening of the F.A.S.T program, which is Foundations of Awareness, Sign Cutting, and Tracking. That's what F.A.S.T stands for. Obviously I'm going to use F.A.S.T from here on out because that is a mouthful. The basic concepts taught tonight is kind of opening your mind, opening it up to more than just looking for tracks in the dirt or mud or whatnot, but thinking about the tools that you have, both the physical tools and your mental tools. You know, what is there something? It's not just what you're seeing. It's, you know, do you hear a noise? Is there a difference in sound as you move through certain areas because it's been disturbed before? Like one of the instructors said, you could tap the leaves and the leaves would make a different sound in one area versus another. So that's a opening up your mind to the different type of thought processes you're gonna have to enter it into. Just the biggest thing is being observant of your surroundings. What is the base conditions and what is not normal for those base conditions. So if you got a field, is there any disturbances in that field? Do you see any difference in color or maybe moisture, or maybe is something out of place? And those are the sort of questions that we have to ask ourselves as we're going into the field. Tomorrow we're going to be doing field work. So tonight was all classroom. And I think it gave a lot to think about. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow because then I can actually start applying and really get my hands dirty, and as they actually call it, dirt time, so I probably quite literally will get myself a little dirty in the field and applying the skills and the knowledge that I got a little bit tonight of. And I think then things will start to stick, things will start to be more solidified in my mind as to the essentials of tracking. So this is the first full day of doing the F.A.S.T training. We're breaking for lunch finally. It's pretty decent out. It's a little overcast. It was a little sunnier this morning, but I'll take the overcast. It's a light breeze. And it's not terribly humid, it's not terribly hot. I would say it's probably upper 70s, low 80s, like maybe as high as maybe 82, 83. We just finished doing a couple learning modules in the classroom, and then we got what we call the dirt time, which I talked about before, and we went over some of the essentials of tracking, and I'm actually going to try and recreate some of the tracking that I saw earlier after I get a little bit to eat. Oh, and one other quick thought, and this is something that I was thinking about the entire time that we're going over this material, there's a lot of similarities between Art 101 and learning the elements of art and elements of tracking. So we go over line, shape, color, texture, contrast, movement, and it's got to be it. I think there's one more. All right, pull it out of the book. Oh, documentation is very, very important. But okay, negative and positive. So positive and negative space. So this tree right behind me would represent a positive space, but all the empty areas around it would be the negative space. And it is not our natural instinct to go to the positive spaces and seeing the objects, such as myself and the tree behind me. But in search and rescue, the negative space, the unoccupied space, is just as important, if not more important, because that's where we'll actually see clues. And if we're only focusing on one aspect, we don't see the other. And so that's a major element. And then you got shape. You know, is there something that's out of the ordinary? So having understanding what is ordinary, which is establishing your baseline, and looking like, here's a field. I see some tracks from a lawnmower that came in a while ago, and looking at the leaves here, I'm going to take an example. It looks like it had been mowed maybe a few days ago, because I got this browning on the tip, where it obviously was chopped off, and it's had a couple days to age on the top. So that's telling me it's not very recent. But if I see some kind of cut or bruising on the leaf, kind of like what I'm just doing with my fingertip right now, you can kind of see a discoloration now, and it doesn't have any browning, then you know that that is a very recent development. And that's the essentials of what we're learning right now, is identifying based off of age and what is new, what is not new, and identifying the details to be able to find the tracks. And it's not easy, but training our eyes and training our ability to perceive our surroundings a lot more. And this is, like I said, this sounds a lot more like art, and you have to open your mind to the possibilities and not just go for the first thought in your head. You have to reflect on it. You have to be able to spend time with it. You have to physically draw the footprints so that you can be able to cement it in your mind, as well as being able to identify it later on and looking for patterns and measuring it. And it's a cross between science and art. So what I have here, these are two really good footprints, and let's see if I can highlight them. But you can see here, you got some really good tread. This right here is the heel. You got the arch, and here's the toe print, and we got a heel print here, arch, and the toe print here. Our task here was to go and mark where all the different footprints are, and I'm going to kind of walk you through some of them. I'll have to kind of refine them, but I know this is the next one. This is the one that jumped out to me just now too. So what we can kind of see here is not nearly as good as it was before, but right here you got a break in this grass here, got a heel print here, a little bit up here you've got some motion,
And you also have these cracks along the dirt where this has been pushed down, and this has been moved and shifted a little bit. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for. So here's the next footprint up here. You can kind of see here, there's some definite depressions here. You also have this pressure on the ground where it started cracking, and looks like this is where the arch is. And again, right up here, let's see if we can shine a light across it. There we go. So looking here, there is a bit of the shoe impression right there. Let's see. So right where the light is highlighting here, that's the grooves inside the shoe, the negative space on the outsole, and this is the positive side of the outsole, which is making the negative space here. And so the toe, well, this is, you don't really see a good toe, but it's kind of right up here. There's a slight depression right along here, and this is bent down. And you can also see here in the rocks where it's been pressed down, and you got this space forming because of the pressure.
This is the last little bit, but you can start to see the use of these flagging sticks, because you can start to see the pattern, and especially since some of these footsteps are so detailed and it's very hard to see, you can start to get a direction of travel. And you also can start to see left foot, right foot, left foot. And even though it doesn't look like there's much, apparently this is a very good example of what we're looking for in the field. So that's just a little piece of what I've been learning, and I thought to recreate some of that training environment, even though this is not, I mean, it took me a lot longer to identify these first, but now that I've seen it before, going back in, I can see it a lot clearer. So already I'm beginning to develop that eye for what is required to do tracking. And that's really a major part of this, is that it's about awareness, and having the awareness of your surroundings and looking for the clues along the way. So we had just finished up a little early, and I thought I would practice a little bit. We were up here earlier looking at the different tracks, looking at a couple of different tracks, and we were trying to determine the tracks that were not belonging to a known subject. So we had about, 5 different shoes. What I'm looking at right now is I'm going to mark out all the tracks along this gravel, and basically determine like the path that these people went. So to give you an idea, this is what I'm looking at. Here's the heel, and here's the main foot, and here's the arch in between. So this is the first mark. Looking ahead, you can see there's a mark over here. So that'd be the second. And it looks like another one right here. There's another foot trail.
Here's one of the other footprints here. Leads into this one here. To me, this looks pretty complete. There's probably a few footsteps that I might be missing, but you can kind of get a feel for the different tracks and where they're heading, where they came from. So I got one trail that goes here, and goes out that way, and ends up over there. You've got this track here, and that's heading over that way. You've got this one here, it's going straight across the whole thing. This track here, which kind of zigzags and ends up, let's see. Yeah, it kind of ends up over there. Oh no, ends up, I think, right over there. That's where it ends up. And then this one right here just kind of goes in here and ends up over there. So yeah, definitely a few different routes here. And like I said, the purpose here is looking at all the different shoes and being able to identify them and identify their direction of travel. And in our process, we had shoe prints for, of the, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. We had shoe prints for 4 of them. So by using those and eliminating the knowns by taking the marks, drawing them out, and matching them to the shoes, we could eliminate 4 of the 5, and the 5th one is going to be our subject that we're actually looking for. So we just did the first night of the second weekend for the FAST training. We did a little bit of classroom, and then as the sun was setting, we started doing some tracking in the night, and I will say that was pretty difficult. Yeah, they were doing some training tracks before and really making it obvious. This time, not so much. It's a little bit more difficult, and I will say I got to really look at using some more tactics, because tactics would have helped and made it so we could have found a lot more tracks a lot easier if we were a lot more strategic in getting that done. So we went over tracking in the snow, the different pressure release of the footfall. So that's basically looking at the actual footprints and identifying the features within that. So there's things like slope. So if the actual footprint, well, first of all, there's what we call cliff. So if you have your footprint here, you have the ground levels a little bit higher up, and it's an impression into the ground. A vertical would be a cliff, and you have vertical on either side. So, but if it's at an angle, a slope where it curves in, that would be the slope. And then you have a overhang where it's a little bit inward. So instead of being pure vertical, it would overhang into it. All right. So we're about halfway through the day on Saturday. There you go. Gotta take that off. It's a little hot. So we just finished a field exercise, doing some searching. We're in the same area that we were in at the end of last 2 weekends ago, and basically it was the same exercise. We didn't really get any briefing information. It was just, there's 3 missing subjects. Here's the last known point, LKP, and go. So we took off. We were definitely disorganized. Part of our group showed up really late to it. I don't know where they were, or they must have gotten lost or something. I'm not sure what. But we finally came up to it and we started getting organized. Earlier today, I was talking about the dynamics of our team in this classroom. And there's really 2 volunteer search and rescue members, and me and 1 other person. And the rest, 5 people, are law enforcement with the Sheriff's Department. And it's been kind of difficult because the law enforcement, they're all sticking together and they're really close-knit, and on the volunteer search and rescue teams, we kind of get separated. And like last night, we broke up into 2 groups. You had 5 law enforcement on one team, and you had the 2 of us volunteer groups. And the dynamic on that was really tough because they were just charging straight ahead, and they could get a lot of ground covered because they had a lot of people working on it. You can have 2 people go and work on the step-by-step, and then you had 3 people going and charging forward and cutting new sign, and they could, you know, cover a lot of ground very quickly. Whereas the 2 of us, we were only had 1 person kind of checking the existing tracks and 1 person moving forward. And I mean, we did the best we could and we got pretty far, but we got bogged down at a couple points, and if we had 1 extra person going cutting line in another direction, we probably could have done it a lot quicker. But trying to get into this dynamics and getting into, you know, breaking up that law enforcement team has been pretty difficult. So this morning I kind of thought my way through it, and you know, I had a kind of a somewhat of a discovery last night in that I started voicing my opinion and just asking questions like, hey, how do you guys want to approach this? What's your thoughts on that? And I got a good response out of that. And so today I kind of took that a step further, and I basically voiced out, all right, guys, let's organize. Okay, who are we going to have going up? And one of the more, I guess, senior persons on the law enforcement, he started, you know, leading a bit more on the law enforcement. And next thing you know, we have a partnership growing. And that's a huge breakthrough, because for the first time in the entire exercise, the law enforcement was actually mixed with the search and rescue. It wasn't just me and the other volunteer. It was me and a law enforcement, and the 2 of us would work this line, and then the other volunteer worked another line with another law enforcement. I think that worked really, really well, and we finally got a little bit of breakdown on that monopoly of the law enforcement. This evening we're going to have the large exercise, and what does that even mean? The large scale exercise is when we take all the students from all the different classrooms and put them together, and we actually have 1, 2, or possibly more victims to find. So they're going to have a management group that's going to actually send out tasks. We're going to use radios. It's basically a search, and I'm very excited about doing it because last time I was a search team member. This time I'm going to be in the tracking camp, so I'm going to have a tracking task, and I want to see things from that perspective. And then the next time I do this, I'll be from a search team leader, and eventually I will be doing it from the management side, so I can see all different aspects of the search, and I really want to get that good grasp on things. Since I have access to the location of where we were last night for our main operation, I'm planning on doing a bit of a walkthrough as to what we saw. We're giving an assignment to start at what they called Gate 13 and go along the fence and investigate or follow any tracks
of interest. But here's that gate 13, which we were tasked. And this is our starting point here. And it was to follow this fence in the road down that way. Now, shortly after we came up to this point, we started getting information from the other tracking unit that they had found some tracks emanating from the point last seen, or PLS, and they tracked it out to, let's see, I'm almost there. All right, in here, this is where the tracks were last night, and we had some really good tracks last night. And I'm going to give you a comparison here of what a really good track would look like. So you can see here, I have a very good impression on this very, very fine, I want to call it dirt, but it's probably closer to a silt. And we found a couple tracks like this of our subject, and it was heading in this direction. Last night, we had so many people walk through. In fact, you can kind of see here, we had a group of people that actually tromped straight through here, trying to get into one of the areas. But we tracked from last night at about this location here, this track right here, and we followed that because we thought that that was where our person had turned off of the trail. Well, right beforehand, we ended up having several searchers that went through that area and contaminated it, and we never really got good sign, because we saw the initial couple of footprints there. We had really good tracks. We had positive confirmation that they were the same footprints from the PLOS, but they pretty much just ended, and they ended near where that track through the grass was. So we started using a little bit of tactics and trying to see if we can pick up the trail somewhere else. So I followed this over. All the while my colleague was doing track by track, and we switched places. I would do track by track, and then she would do track by track, and we worked that particular problem quite a bit. Here, well, this is someone cutting through. I mean, my site's now getting very contaminated, but last night, this is the passage that we saw, and it lined up perfectly with what we saw was the ending trail of the footprints. So we made the assumption there, because we didn't see it progress any further, that the person could have turned off, and that's what we saw. Now, that ended up not being the case, but here we kind of tracked it a little bit through here. We couldn't really determine what it was. Well, once we didn't find any signs one way or the other, we basically decided we're going to continue with our original path or original task and try and complete that. So here we are. We're going down the road here. I would say we got about this far when we got the call that the subject was found. At this point, we teamed up with the rest of the units, and we lined up
up and down this road, and we would basically carry the litter. We had 2 subjects found. One was a young girl, 13, then one was a young boy, 11, and we brought them in. The young boy had now this is all simulation, by the way. The young boy had an ankle injury. They had splinted his leg and put him in a litter, and were carrying the litter all the way back to base. At that point, we were just part of the rescue team and made our way back. Overall, it took close to 2, if not almost 3 hours to complete the find and bring them back to base. And this is a very small area compared to where these children could have been. And this is also simulation. So we use data where we should likely search, and it gives us these estimation rings. We barely covered the 25% likelihood of finding the person based off of the description of missing children. So, putting that in perspective, we would most likely want to go and plan for up to 50%. Beyond 50%, sometimes it's hard to get that many resources or cover that much ground. And there was large areas that we did not actually search. So, knowing all that, you can begin to get some scale as to what we're actually up against when we're trying to do a search. So, conclusions. I will say this class is an eye-opener, and I highly recommend it for any search and rescue team member, because it really helps you to narrow your focus down to what really counts. And while this is only the beginning step, it is the first major step in becoming a better searcher. I hope you enjoyed my video, whether it's enlightened you into a world that you've never seen before, or maybe inspires you to do something a little bit different. Maybe gives you a little heads up before you take the F.A.S.T class, or just entertain you. Either way, I hope you watch again here at Nova Mountaineer. Take care.